Hello, friends. Topic today is the Kandahar giant. So most of you are probably familiar with this story. If you're not, you can look it up. You can find hours and hours and hours of video talking about the story of the Kandahar giant. And many of those videos will feature our friend L.A. Marzulli. The BS part that I want to talk about today is not the Kandahar giant story itself, which is full of so many holes and it is so clearly BS. But it's this weird thing where L.A. Marzulli wants to take credit for the story. Here's a recent video where he's talking to some other clown.
But Rick and I interviewed and broke the story on the Kandahar giant. We were the ones that broke the story on it.
We interviewed and we broke the story on the Kandahar giant. We were the ones that broke the story on it. Now, I've heard him say this in other videos too. It's very important for him to get credit for breaking the story of the Kandahar giant. But let's go back to a time. Let's rewind the clock to when L.A. Marzulli first started talking about the Kandahar giant. 2016, I think. Here we go.
But both of you have a part of this story. Richard, you've got a part of it. L.A., you've got a part of it. Tell us.
Well, we need to give kudos to Steve Quayle, because Steve Quayle is the guy that broke the story, and Steve is an incredible researcher, second to none. And he broke the story years ago about a pilot who brought out a very, very large giant, at least 12 feet tall, 1,100 pounds. And the pilot was on George Norrie's show. And
okay, so there he says quite clearly twice that Steve Quayle is the one who broke the story. He uses the exact same phrase, broke the story. He broke the story. And this is plainly evident to anybody. You can go and check the internet history. Jason Colavito has written about this. So the history of the stories that came out is pretty clear. So why is it that Mr. Marzulli, sometimes he refers to himself as doctor. I checked. He got one of those honorary doctorates, but he is billed sometimes, self-billed as Dr. Marzulli. I guess it's the same as Scott Walter's Coffee Cup Masters. Anyway, why it is so important for L.A. Marzulli to be the originator of this story, I do not know. It's interesting as you watch how this gets elaborated. I have not gone back and looked at the original Steve Quayle telling of the Kandahar giant, which is they put the giant on a plane, they take it out, and then LA's part of the story is he talks to somebody who was on the patrol that shot the giant, whatever. So I don't know what Steve Quayle's description is. That stuff is behind a password subscription thing, and there is no way I'm going to pay money to listen to him on George Norrie's show 14 years ago. Anyway, Marzulli adds in some details that he gets from his informant.
Can you expound more on that giant?
The giant was 12 to 14 feet, flaming red hair, double rows of teeth, 6 fingers, 6 toes.
It's got flaming red hair. Later on, they counted the 6 fingers to this thing, 6 toes, double rows of teeth. And this thing is like ready to fight.
Counted the fingers, 6 fingers. They have double rows of teeth. The timing of that is interesting because this is about the time, I think Search for the Lost Giants comes out in 2015 maybe, and that's when a lot of these books that are compendiums of these old giant accounts from newspapers are kind of latched onto this idea of double rows of teeth, which by the way is something that I looked at extensively. It's a descriptive term along with double teeth and double teeth all around that show up in a lot of these accounts from the late 1800s. I pretty much figured that out linguistically. I should do videos on that. Go to my blog and you'll find that stuff, tons and tons of it. It was a figure of speech referring to, when they said double rows of teeth, there are many instances when they use that not in reference to giant skeletons that let you understand that they're talking about the top row of teeth and the bottom row of teeth. Teddy Roosevelt had a beautiful double row of teeth, displaying his smile with the double rows of teeth. This dog was barking at me and I could see his double rows of teeth. That's what it refers to. But that phraseology is interesting that it comes out in LA's retelling of the tale in 2016 because that's kind of a hot item then, whereas in 2008 it might not have been. So that's one of those details that gets added in that's fashionable. And by the way, nowhere in the Bible does it say that giants had double rows of teeth. I think Goliath had the 6 fingers, which is where that comes from. All right, I've talked enough about him. You kind of know what you're getting. L.A. Marzulli just pumps out the videos basically saying the same thing over and over again. He's got his elongated skulls. He's got these ideas about cattle mutilations and the Nephilim, and the UFOs come down and they extract the fetuses from the women that have been impregnated by the Nephilim, I assume, and they're taking the cattle to make artificial wombs to somehow create these beings, these interdimensional. You've got the Nephilim in Gaza. It's a very he's got a very kind of like end of days orientation to everything, and all this stuff has to fit in, and a lot of it is total nonsense. He's probably one of the biggest loudmouths in terms of trying to keep alive the myth of the mound builder, saying that Native Americans did not build these mounds. And of course, I had the dust up with him where he accused me of doctoring some old ink drawing from the 1800s to make a skeleton appear smaller. And as per our legal agreement, all I can say about that is that the matter was settled to the satisfaction of both parties. Anyway, that's what I've got for today. I'm going to do an interview here in a little bit, and then I'm going to move on to other things in my life, which are a little bit more fun and a little bit more interesting, but maybe no less important than calling bullshit when I see bullshit.
And I interviewed and broke the story on the Kandahar giant. We were the ones that broke the story on it.
Well, we need to give kudos to Steve Quayle, because Steve Quayle is the guy that broke the story, and Steve is an incredible researcher, second to none, and he broke the story years ago.
Have a nice weekend. Hopefully a long one if you get it off. Bye-bye.